Hello everyone, and many thanks for joining today's stream. Hopefully there are gonna be no technical issues. I hope sound is good, and if so, dear friends, please comment in a chat, please, so that I will know that everything is working okay. You know how it goes time to time during the live streams. Some equipment will not work or something else will happen. Anyways, it's 22nd of, hopefully everything is working good. So I will just carry on. So today is, of course, 22nd of December. Well, Michael Kennedy is commenting. It's good. So thank you, Michael, for letting me know. And thank you, dear friends, sir, for letting me know that technically there is no issues right now. And well, it is 22nd of December. A little later today, I'm gonna be honest, dear friends. I was playing chess. I said yesterday, isn't it, during the community chat, that quite often before I launch a stream to calm nerves down, to be more focused, I'm playing chess. And this game on chess.com, by the way, and this game just went a little too longer. It's a 10-minute that you have each, and yeah, it lasted long. I won. I won. So yeah, okay. That's the honesty, by the way. This time around, there was no technical issues, sir. I was just playing chess. And yes, it's the 22nd of December. If after the new segment there are gonna be any questions or the comments through super chat on Rumble, of course I will react on it. Otherwise, it's work day, so after new segment I will end the stream there, and maybe I will divide stream video on the two parts, and I will publish two parts separately, because for whatever reason many members of our community don't watch stream videos later on if they are not at the stream itself. So for them I will publish a video from stream separately. And okay, that's been said. I will just highlight that yesterday we had a great community chat, isn't it? 4-hour stream. It was quite exhausting in some sense. It's not easy to stay online 4 hours, but we had a great conversation, I think. And many thanks to everybody who joined yesterday's stream and who supported my work. Okay, that's been said. Let's start the new segment, dear friends. A lot is happening, and unfortunately, I have to start today's new segment with a tragic event that happened in Moscow this morning, when most likely Kiev regime, the so-called secret services, with assistance of British secret services, conducted yet another terrorist attack. And as a result of this terrorist attack, Lieutenant General Sarwarov was killed. Media is already reporting about it, so let me give you details on that. So Lieutenant General Fanil Sarwarov was killed in a bomb explosion in Moscow. Investigative committee spokesperson Svetlana Petrenko told RIA Novosti, and this is quote, "The head of the operational training department of the general staff of the Russian armed forces, Lieutenant General Fanil Sarwarov, died as a result of his injuries after this explosion. According to investigation, on the morning of December 22nd, explosive device planted under the car was detonated on Yasineva Street. According to one of the terrorists, Ukrainian intelligence services were involved in the murder. Criminal case has been open. Investigators and forensic experts are questioning eyewitnesses and examining CCTV footage. Forensic and explosive examination are also planned. And as I said, unfortunately, yet another tragic tragedy in Russia, in Moscow. In this particular case, yet another Russian high-ranking military official was targeted and killed. I'm quite sure not just by Kiev regime itself, but first of all, behind this terror campaign that we are witnessing is a United Kingdom. I have no doubts about it. It's a United Kingdom Secret Services, MI6 primarily, and I think MI6 would not conduct such terrorist attacks on Russian soil without green light from US CIA. Let's see what our investigation will say. But as it was the case in previous such instances when high-ranking Russian military officials were targeted or other public figures, this time around also probably investigation will say nothing about involvement of Western secret services in this terrorist activity, and reason why they would not say, even if they have a lot of evidences of that, is that if Russian investigators would say it openly that yes, this was not just Kiev regime, but this terrorist attack was orchestrated by British secret services with the assistance of US secret services. Of course, in that case, society will demand a response against everyone who was involved, and I don't think Moscow wants to escalate that much, at least under the current leadership, right? And this, of course, emboldened this attitude definitely emboldens enemies of Russia, Western ruling class, and secret services that they are in control of, and therefore, unfortunately, this kind of terrorist activity, terror campaign against Russia will continue, and will continue as long as Western ruling class feels immune to any consequences whatsoever, no matter what they're gonna do against Russia. Yet again, this is my personal opinion that British and US secret services were behind this terrorist attack. And I guess vast majority of our community will agree with me, by the way. Information about Lieutenant General Sarwarov or any other general for that matter is not in open space, right? You need sophisticated intelligence services to gain such information. And among our enemies, we know most sophisticated, most advanced ones, and most out of control ones are secret services of US and the United Kingdom. It's just factual, right? You don't have to be genius to understand this, right? It's on surface even, right? But nevertheless, let's see what investigation will come up with there. But yes, every time this kind of terrorist attack happens, of course, it causes frustration in the public that pays attention to these developments, and anger is rising, by the way. That's for sure. Anger towards enemies of Russia, and I guess we are getting closer and closer to the point when maybe society and some public figures will openly demand from Russian leadership, from President Putin, to greenlight Russian militaries and secret services to take whatever actions they think are necessary to deter our enemies and to neutralize our enemies. I think we are getting very close to that point because, I mean, enough is enough, right? Russian secret services, Russian security services and militaries are fighting for years now. One might say even longer than that, much longer than that, actually, at least since 2008, I will argue, or definitely at least 2014, Russian secret services, Russian militaries are fighting with their both hands being tied behind their backs. And this is not fair, man. This is not fair. I think it is time to greenlight, to make the political decision and greenlight Russian security services and militaries to take whatever actions they think is necessary to deal with their enemy. Let's see what is going to be a response from Moscow. But yes, I mean, another general was targeted and killed. Of course, many people are gonna think, I mean, even if generals from general staff are not safe, then who is this? So who is safe then? From British terrorists, from American terrorists, and from their proxy Ukrainian terrorists. Who is safe then in that case? This is a legit question, isn't it? And many people will ask these questions. I have no doubts about it. I remind you, dear friends, that a couple of weeks ago, British terrorists and their proxies, Ukrainian terrorists, with assistance of, with involvement of CIA, US CIA, obviously, targeted Russian scientists. So it's not just the militaries, by the way, that they are targeting and killing. They are targeting public figures, scientists, media personalities. They are on a terror spree. They are on a killing spree. And definitely something has to be done, by the way, to at least retaliate in a kind, retaliate with such force and scale that Western ruling class, our enemies, will be terrified. That's what we have to do, in my personal opinion. I commented about this, obviously, on my Telegram and Twitter X page, and well, we can read my take on the situation. I, as one citizen of the Russian Federation, demand retaliations against the UK and US, right? Against everybody who is involved, right? Our enemies should be terrified, literally. They should beg for a quick death. That's what we should do to them, right? But unfortunately, we are not there yet. Which makes many people here in Russia angry, by the way. And if you were a Russian citizen, you will understand what am I talking about. Let's continue with some other news. And the TASS news agency reported that 41 drones were intercepted by Russian air defense systems on duty past night. Yet again, number is relatively low compared to other days when hundreds of drones are intercepted. And for example, yesterday, media based on defense ministry reported that 3 drones were intercepted overnight. Today is 41, still relatively low number. And I think what is going on is that Kyiv regime and NATO and their NATO backers, they are stockpiling significant number of drones, I think, and couple of days before New Year, maybe during the New Year celebrations, basically, they will start launching massive volleys of these drones, potentially missiles, to strike deep into Russian territory and to basically create more and more tragedies and to spoil New Year's and Christmas celebrations for the Russian people. That's what they're gonna do. I don't think there is any doubts about it. That's the reason behind this drop in launches, long-range launches from our enemy side. So 41 drones were intercepted past night, and well, unfortunately, some of the drones did manage to bypass, seems like, air defense systems. And for example, in the village of Volna in Kuban, this is southern Russia, by the way, 2 piers were damaged due to drone attacks, and also 2 vessels. Let me give you details on that. So 2 piers and 2 vessels in the village of Volna in Kuban were damaged by drone attack. The regional task force reported there are no information for this moment about casualties among crew members of these vessels, and of course everybody in the area was evacuated. During the day we might learn some more about past night's attacks, and of course I will share additional information on my Telegram and Twitter X page and in the next updates. And also, dear friends, I mean, you can see there is a lot of news to continue, but before I do so, let me drop a link to my Rumble channel. Sometimes I'm forgetting about it. Let me drop a link to my Rumble channel in the YouTube chat, and if it's convenient enough for you, dear friends, if it's not bigger of an issue, please switch to my Rumble if you can. That will help for sure to develop my Rumble channel faster than otherwise. So I dropped the link, dear friends. All you have to do is just click there. You will go to my Rumble channel, and it's the same stream, by the way. It's the same stream here and there, right? Okay, let's continue with some Other news now, and yesterday during the big community chat, traditional Sunday community chat, I did mention this report, for example, that Ukrainian armed forces announced that they had abandoned their positions in the Sumy region near the border with Russia, and this can be explained. Russian armed forces launched yet another offensive. At this point, still local scale offensive operation in the Sumy region, and already 2 settlements have been liberated on the borderline, and Russian troops are advancing quite rapidly. And Kiev regime, due to these developments, Kiev regime also began evacuation of whoever wants to be evacuated among civilians from Krasnopolsky district. Let me show you on the map, dear friends, location of this district. So this is Sumy region, of course, and this is Krasnopolye district. And settlements that are liberated is Vysokaya. About it I reported in previous updates. And another settlement that Russian troops established control over is Grabovskoye, this village that you see right now on your screen. Relatively bigger village, and Russian troops moved westwards from this village. And this morning reports are coming in that Russian armed forces entered settlement of Ryasne, that you see right now on your screen, also a relatively larger village, by the way, and probably towards the end of today or maybe tomorrow, we will receive information that the settlement is also being liberated by Russian forces. And the area from where Kiev regime's forces retreated is exactly these settlements, Grabovskaya and Ryasnor, and they are withdrawing towards the north, and probably Russian troops will follow this retreating Kiev regime's forces, and soon probably we will start receiving information about Russian troops being present in Taratutina settlement area that you see right now on your screen. So this is when it comes to Sumy region. Simultaneously, friends, when it comes to Sumy direction, Russian armed forces are intensifying their operations in direction of Sumy city itself from the northern side, and this activization, where Russian troops already have liberated about a dozen of settlements a little earlier, and I guess this acceleration of Russian operations in the Sumy region is connected, most likely connected, with the reports that Kiev regime redeployed significant number of troops from Sumy and Chernigov regions towards the Kupiansk direction to launch that suicidal counteroffensive that we are hearing last a couple of weeks now, at least a week or two, right? And of course, Russian militaries notice this, and they're going to use now opening. They're going to use window of opportunity and accelerate their operations in the Sumy region, while Russian troops are grounding Kiev regime's militaries that were deployed from Sumy region in the Kupiansk area and other directions. There are reports that these counteroffensives, suicidal counteroffensives in the Pokrovsk-Mirnograd direction, is also conducted nowadays by the troops that were withdrawn from Sumy and the Chernigov region. And while map is open, dear friends, let's go sector by sector. Also, so in Kherson direction, no major developments at this point. Local scale skirmishes are taking place. In Zaporozhye sector, main hotspots, of course, are Gulyai Polye, which is more than 50% under Russian control now, and it is possible that before end of this week, Gulyai Polye on the most eastern side of Zaporozhye sector will be completely liberated by Russian forces, and Russian troops are also advancing northwards from Gulyai Polye in the Zaporozhye region. In the central area of Zaporozhye sector, there is another stronghold of Kiev regime, Orekhov, and Russian troops, basically, as far as I can tell, are finalizing their preparations to launch offensive in direction of Orekhov also. And the reports are coming in that on the most western flank of Zaporozhye region, in the area of Stepnogorsk, Russian armed forces also finalizing clearing operation, and there may be before end of this week, Sipnagorsk will be officially declared as being liberated. And reports are that Russian troops also entered the area of settlement of Lukyanovskaya. This map is little behind of these developments. They have no markings there, but that's what I have seen on military sources, right? When it comes to DPR, one of the main hotspots is of course still Mirnograd, and well, Russian troops are also conducting this cleaning operation in northern part of the Mirnograd. There are 50%, approximately 50% of this northern or main body of the city is under Russian control. Cleaning operation seems like being finalized there, but there is a lot to do. Obviously, Mirnograd was a quite relatively big town, and there is thousands of buildings that have to be cleared from enemy forces. It is difficult to say how many troops of Kiev regime are still trapped in Mirnograd, but probably it's at least around 1,000. So of course, Russian troops will take whatever time is necessary to finalize this clearing operation with minimal losses. In Konstantinovka area, by the way, Russian troops were intensifying offensive operations. On this map, based on this map, you might not think that 50% of the city is under Russian control, but that's exactly what Russian militaries, high-ranking Russian militaries stated during the recent meeting with the Russian president. So I guess 50% of Konstantinovka is under Russian control, or supposed to be under Russian control, based on the claims that number of high-ranking military officials are making. And also there is northern part of DPR, of course, Seversk Liman area, where Russian troops are also advancing. Seversk is already under Russian control, you know this. Now clearing operation is underway in Zakatnae settlement, which is located in between Seversk and Liman. And when it comes to Liman itself, well, there was a hope that Liman also will be liberated before end of this year, but probably this is not happening, not now. But Russian troops are encircling Liman from 3 directions, by the way, from northern western side, from northern side, and eastern side. Russian troops are conducting clearing operation in this massive forestry on the southern eastern side of Liman. And well, I guess maybe before end of January, maybe in February, Liman will become under full Russian control. We should keep in mind, dear friends, that weather is relatively mild still, right? It's kind of Rasput. It's to nowadays. It's almost end of January, December, isn't it? But because this month of the winter was relatively mild, it's a mud everywhere. By the way, it's mud everywhere, and of course, conditions on the ground do dictate certain rules, right? This is always the case, by the way, with Rasputitsa. And once winter will be in a full swing, once ground will freeze solid, of course, we should expect a significant activization of Russian offensive operations all along the front line, including, of course, in Liman. And this is one of the reasons why am I saying that maybe Liman will be liberated before end of January next year, January 2026, or maybe in February. We will see. Of course. Also, dear friends, Russian armed forces in the Kharkov region liberated Vilcha settlement. In past several weeks, Russian armed forces were very active in Volchansk area. Volchansk city itself is under full Russian control now. About a week ago, Russian troops established control over the village of Liman. There is a city of Liman in DPR that I was just talking about, and there is a village of Liman also. But this village is in Kharkov region, which is under Russian control now, and battles were taking place for Vilcha settlement that is located on the southern side of Volchansk. And today, number of sources are reporting that this settlement, Vilcha, is under full Russian control. Defense Ministry did not yet made official statement about it, but probably today, before end of this day, maximum tomorrow, we will have an update on this development. Also, and Kupiansk, of course, in the Kharkov region, there is also a Kupiansk area where the regime's forces still are conducting this local-scale offensive operations. Ukrainian and pro-Ukrainian propaganda outlets are pushing this narrative that Kupiansk is almost completely under control of Kyiv regime's forces, and they managed to reclaim the city. But I don't believe in any of it, right? Some videos being spread online, right, as a confirmation of progress of Kyiv regime forces in Kupiansk. But when these videos were filmed, by the way, do you know? I definitely don't, right? And there were so many instances when old videos were put up by Kyiv regime to claim something that I don't believe literally none of it, right? Russian leadership, including Russian Defense Ministry, Russian military leadership, including Defense Minister Belousov, just a few days ago, once again stated that Kupiansk is under Russian control, and I believe Kupiansk is under Russian control. There is no circumstances when I will question Russian Defense Ministry statements based on some freaking propaganda from our enemies. So I don't believe, by the way, in any of those claims of our enemies that they did manage to reclaim Kupiansk. It's all freaking BS and nonsense. Personal opinion, you might agree with me, you might don't. None of us are in Kupiansk, by the way, so we have to choose our sources, right? And I'm trusting Russian militaries. They said Kupiansk is under our control. There might be some issues. Kyiv regime is launching these suicidal operations literally on a daily basis, right? So, of course, there is a fierce fighting on the outskirts of the city, around the city, right? There was a report, by the way, that Russian armed forces, for example, destroyed, completely eliminated a column of the Kyiv regime in Moskovka settlement, which is basically located right next to Kupiansk itself. And if you don't know that this village is this area is a separate village, you would not ever know that this is not a part of city. But it is not. It's a separate settlement, right? And well, Russian troops eliminated some column in Moskovka, for example. I saw a video of that. So yet again, I believe Kupiansk is under Russian control. Fierce fighting is still underway, of course, but in no circumstances, by the way, either in this or any other freaking universe, enemies of Russia will be able to achieve any strategical success anywhere on a line of contact. Just not happening, not possible, period, right? Some local scale, very tiny, successful operations can be done by our enemies. After all, this is a 1,000-kilometer longer front line. But generally speaking, on all sectors of the front line, initiative is in Russian hands, and this will not change, period. Let's continue with some other news. And well, I think many members of our community will find this report interesting, that Russian 5th-gen fighter jet Su-57 made its first flight with their 5th-generation engine. There was a lot of talks, by the way, when Su-57s will get their new engine. Because they were using now advanced engines, obviously, but engines that are also on Su-35s, for example, right? Su-30s and so on. I mean, there are different modifications of that, but it was a 4th-generation engine. And well, today, even videos started circulating when Su-57 was taking off with this new engine. And you know what? I can actually show you the video itself. I can show you a video itself. Let me just find it. Oh, I see questions in the chat, and dear friends, during the work days, we have a big community chat on Sundays, where when I'm up, engaged with the community. But in work days, in order to make updates a little shorter, I'm reacting on questions that I might receive from support platforms, that is PayPal, Boosty, or Super Chat on Rumble, right? So don't be mad at me, dear friends, especially new members of community that don't know how we work. And so let me show you the video, dear friends. This is the video. Music. This is the engine of fifth gen. You know, I'm not an expert in engines, obviously, and I know nothing about it, obviously. But this engine, fifth gen engine, by the way, what makes difference is that fifth gen engine is much more powerful and allows SU-57 will allow it's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal. There are only few countries in this world that actually can produce proper engines, by the way, either for civilian aircraft or for military aircraft. And Russia definitely is one of those few countries that actually is well capable of producing engines, top-notch engines for civilian aircraft and also for military aircraft. And there, in many cases, friends of Russia are asking for transfer of technology, and there are instances when Russia is helping with that, isn't it? And I'm quite sure if Moscow and New Delhi will find an agreement about Su-57s, maybe Russia will transfer technology too, so that of engines, among other things, right? And India will be able to produce, gain knowledge, and after some time produce domestically, completely domestically build their next generation engines. Let's continue with some other news, dear friends. And of course, we have to talk about this continuing farce based on this Trump's so-called peace plan, which is nothing more than a deception operation, combined deception operation of US ruling class and European ruling class, right? I said this from the very beginning, and I'm going to repeat this because I'm 100% convinced that's exactly what is happening. Although Russia said, Russian leadership said that yes, door is open for diplomacy. Let's have a talk. Let's discuss this situation. Although obviously that initial 28-point plan of Trump was absolutely unacceptable for Russia, or cannot be acceptable. Although Western media, Western propaganda did push this false narrative that this 28-point plan somehow was a Russian plan, by the way, which is crazy. If you go through points, you will realize that this is basically demand of capitulation from Russia, right? So how this plan could be Russian? But yet again, nevertheless, because of their power of propaganda, by the way, right? Power of MSM, Western ruling class quite successfully pushed this narrative, false narrative, worldwide, right? And especially in the Western world. And many people, I'm quite sure, very many people, maybe even majority in the West, are quite convinced that Trump's original 28-point peace plan was written by Russians in Moscow, which is crazy yet again. But those majority never actually read those points, isn't it? I did, and it was total nonsense, right? But and after that, by the way, and you might ask, yes, but why Western ruling class push this narrative? right? False narrative that this 28-point plan is kind of Russian one. And the explanation is quite on the surface, I guess. They push this false narrative because they wanted to make stronger points, to change this plan and demand from Russia even more, right? And to be able to do it, right, they have to come up with this false narrative that this previous 28-point plan was just too weak, too pro-Russian. So now we are strengthening certain points here. That's the game plan of the Western ruling class, although, of course, nobody here in Russia buy this nonsense. Although the door is open for talks, for diplomacy, and that's why Dmitriev, aide of Russian president, went to US past weekends. He had 2-day meetings with Witkoff and Kushner, and God knows with whom else. Dmitriev said that dialogue was constructive. Also, and the TASS news agency, by the way, reported about it, that Dmitriev concluded 2-day talks with the US on Ukraine in Miami. And take a look at the news itself. You can see on your screen, isn't it? That's all. That's all what TASS reported. That Kirill Dmitriev, special representative of the Russian president, of the president of the Russian Federation, and the CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, RDIF, concluded 2 days of talks with the United States on the Ukrainian settlement on December 21st, and departed Miami. TASS correspondent reported, and that's it. That's all, Bob. Right? Another sentence: negotiations on the Ukrainian settlement took place on December 20 and 21st. The American side was represented by the U.S. Presidential Special Representative Steven Witkoff and the American leader's son-in-law, entrepreneur Jared Kushner. That's all. That's what TASS had to say about it. And TASS is the biggest news agency here in Russia, by the way, state-funded news agency. And they had nothing to say about this meeting. And this information itself is quite telling, isn't it? This was a conversation for the sake of conversation. That's it. Am I correct? Am I correct? None of us should expect any breakthroughs. I did not, certainly, and that's why I'm not at all surprised that, yeah, TASS news agency has literally nothing to say about these talks, because there is nothing to discuss, really. Although Kirill Dmitriev hinted that next US-Russia talks could take place in Moscow. Okay, by the way. Okay, in Moscow, in Vladivostok, somewhere else. Okay, door is open for talks, for diplomacy. This is a position of Moscow, and okay, let them talk. But should we expect any successful agreements, or any agreements to be reached and these talks to be successful? No, not happening, not possible, by the way. Even on theoretical level, progress in relationships between Moscow and Washington under the current leadership of US and under the current political system in the US, just not possible. We should not expect any positivity there whatsoever, nothing, right? US ruling class and the forces that are actually in charge and pulling the strings, they are too hostile towards Russia, right? They are still operating with the mindset of a Cold War, and they see Russia exclusively as an enemy. They don't see Russia as a partner, as a country, cooperation with which is going to be beneficial not just for Russia but for US also, and for the people of US. First of all, I mean, they should think ideally about people's interests, but they don't give a damn about it. We all know that, correct? They consider Russia as their enemy. They see Russia as a gas station. They see Russia as a territory that is very rich with all sorts of resources, natural resources, and they want it. They want it. They want to control these resources. That's all. They care, man. They don't see Russia as a friend or the partner. And let's not kid ourselves, by the way, that things are going to change tomorrow or day after. No. US attitude, or the US, or attitude of the US ruling class towards Russia will not change until Americans, ordinary Americans, will not realize that they have lost their own country and say in their own destiny. When they will realize this, when they will rebel, when they will demolish this corrupt anti-American system that they have in the country, when they establish new elites from decent human beings, at that point, obviously, there will be huge progress in the relationships between two countries. Because with adequate people, we can definitely cooperate. We would love to cooperate. But with these morons and the criminals that are actually in charge in US, there can be no friendship, real friendship. There can be no real partnership. There can be no real cooperation, by the way. So let's not lie to ourselves, right? Let's face the reality as it is. It might not be pleasant, and quite often, unfortunately, it is not. But nevertheless, it's a reality, right? RT is also reporting that Witkoff, on his part, also commented on these talks with the Russian side and said that, well, talks were productive, whatever he means by this. Productive, how exactly? I mean, U.S. Special Envoy Witkoff has described the latest negotiations in Miami with the Russian President Vladimir Putin's envoy Kirill Dmitriev as productive and constructive, signaling continued momentum in U.S.-led efforts to reach the settlement on the Ukrainian conflict. Just some nonsensical phrases, by the way. Phrases that they have adopted to say whenever they have nothing to say. But, well, dialogue was productive and constructive. Okay, we get that. Productive how? Did you manage to achieve any agreements? Is anything actually there? No. So what productive means in understanding of Witkoff. But anyways, by the way, this was a farce from the beginning. Yet again, Western ruling class come up with this idea of this new wave of deception operation because they are desperate for a break, right? Western ruling class is desperate for a break, and their proxy Q regime and Q regime's forces are even more desperate for a break. And they were hoping that somehow they will lure in Russia into these nonsensical talks and then force Russia's hands to agree on the temporary measures like ceasefire and stuff. And it did not work. It just did not work, right? But still, Moscow is saying, understandably so, by the way, that, well, door is open for talks. And Russian president is sending his representatives to have these talks. But do anybody in Kremlin, including President Putin, believes that some agreements actually can be reached with those? No, man. Nobody in the Kremlin is that naive, man. No, after Minsk 1, Minsk 2, and all the other agreements that Western ruling class never honored. We had enough lessons, right? And we learned something. RT is also reporting that Zelensky, meanwhile, by the way, is demanding more and more money, more and more weapons, everything more, right? He is demanding everything. And he's now saying that, Kiev regime, for whatever reason, Zelensky is so emboldened, right, by his globalist backers that he seems like quite sure now that he's going to maintain power. West going to force Russia to agree on a ceasefire and that kind of stuff. And on top of that, he's saying that, well, because Kiev regime will have an 800,000 army that it cannot afford. It's Western countries that have to pay for this army. After conflict will end also, not just now, but when conflict ends, then too. That's what Zelensky's demand is. And you do calculus, by the way, how much it will cost to maintain 800,000 army. This is all nonsense. You'll understand, by the way, when this conflict will actually end, there will be no more Ukraine on the political map, and there's going to be no more Ukrainian army, right? It's not going to exist. So this is all nonsense that Zelensky is talking about. But appetite of Zelensky is something else, isn't it? God knows how many billions he stole from Western taxpayers' money and he still, by the way, still wants more. He cannot stop, man. How these creatures are built, man. I mean, what the hell is going on in their brains? I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, that's with whom we are dealing, man. Holy moly. Let's continue with some other news. And, well, for whatever reason, or this, oh, it's opened. Okay. Oh, no. Vzgliader don't want to open, but there was a news, I remember, by the way, there was a news there that Germany will pay most of their 90 billion euro loan that European bureaucrats approved for a Kyiv regime to prolong this proxy war against Russia for the next 2 years, although they added that more money will be needed. This 90 billion is not enough. They want another 40 to 60 billion euros on top of this 90. And reports are from German media outlets, for example. I believe Bild was reporting that most of this money will come from Germany. And to service this 90 billion euro loan that EU gonna take to finance this proxy war, every single year, interest will be 3 billion euros on that. And obviously, this 3 billion euros on year basis until this 90 billion loan is returned will be paid by European taxpayers. So I don't know, man. Maybe European taxpayers are so freaking rich that they don't care really about the 90 billion, 100 billion, 200 billion, 500 billion euros. Are you printing money there? Why people in Europe don't care what the hell is going on in their own taxes, man? Or maybe, I don't know. I mean, last time I was in Europe was like 25 years ago or something. And since then, maybe things change big time, and every European become billionaire, and they're no longer counting no money, no taxes, no nothing. Maybe they are collecting money on the trees or something, because it's insane, man. Level of money that's been stolen from European taxpayers is crazy, right? And still, no protests, no nothing, with the exception of this informed minority that is trying to challenge this craziness of the Western elites. No one else cares, seems like, right? Okay. And also, when it comes to this proxy war, by the way, another indicator that our Western ruling class is not about de-escalation is that our logistics hub is being created in Romania. Another one for deliveries to Ukraine, for weapons deliveries to Ukraine. So you tell me now, if our Western ruling class was actually serious about de-escalation and ending hostilities, would they spend God knows how much money, tens of millions of dollars, I guess, right? Maybe more, on the creation of another base, another logistical hub to transfer weapons to Kyiv regime? Would they do this if they were actually serious about the escalation with Russia? No, they wouldn't. And therefore, this is yet another indicator on top of this allocated 90 plus billion euros for next 2 years. This is another indicator that the Western ruling class has no intent to end anything, right? They are all about prolongation of this proxy war as much as possible. At least ideally, they want to prolong it until 2029, 2030, when their rearmament programs, at least first phases of rearmament programs, will be finalized, and based on their calculus, Western ruling class thinks, European elites among them, thinking that for 2029, 2030, European armies, at least from coalition of willing and some others, will be ready to enter openly hostilities with Russia, which is a mistake on their part, right? But because Kyiv regime is collapsing, on the brink of collapse, and Kyiv regime's forces are on the brink of collapse, and might last maybe another year, max a year and a half, Therefore, I think European elites will accelerate processes of militarization, rearmament among European NATO member states. First of all, coalition of willing, and as a part of this program of preparations for the war against Russia, open direct war of European countries with Russia, they are building this freaking military base, yet another military base in Romania. So authorities there in Bucharest plan to open a second largest coordination and transit center for military equipment to Ukraine in January 2026, in a couple of weeks' time, by the way. This was reported on Saturday by Defense Romania source, citing Michael Keller, deputy commander of the NATO Security Assistance and the Training Mission to Ukraine. According to him, the creation of this hub is aimed to ensure a reserve flow of arms supplies, strengthening the logistical resilience of NATO's eastern flank, and relieving the border broaden on the already and relieving burden on the already functioning hub in Rzeszów in Poland. The new logistics center will be under direct NATO command and will handle requests for artillery, air defense, and electronic warfare equipment. So that's what is going on, by the way. Formally, it's for Kiev regime, to assist Kiev regime, but in reality, obviously, all these military developments are for war, being prepared and built for a war with Russia, open war with Russia, which is inevitable at this point. I think either before end of 2026 or in the first half of 2027, we will see direct clashes between Russian troops and troops of number of European NATO member states. First of all, coalition of willing, and that confrontation will have far-reaching consequences, and borders of quite a number of NATO member states going to change forever as a result. I spoke about this stuff in past updates too, and I think there is no need to reiterate myself now what I mean. But meanwhile, West continues to escalate with Russia on daily basis, and Sweden detained a Russian container ship Adler. The Russian vessel Adler which was anchored off the city of Höganäs, was detained on a Sunday night for inspection by Swedish customs and the Coast Guard, according to Swedish TV portal SVT. The customs inspection has not yet been completed, so I cannot say what the result it has yielded, said the press secretary of the Swedish Customs, Martin Högland. The vessel left the port of Bronka near the St. Petersburg, Russia, 5 days ago now. It was heading through the Oresund Strait when an engine failure occurred on a Saturday night. After sending distress signal on Saturday morning, the container ship anchored off the Skåne Peninsula in southwestern Sweden, and instead of providing assistance, by the way, to vessel that is sending distress signal, they detained it. Sweden, your level of humanity is beyond charts, man. You are human, Swedes. Wow. Should be ashamed of yourselves, guys. What the hell is wrong with you, man? What propaganda did to you guys? I mean, are you that crazy? Are you being completely freaking zombified? People are needing assistance and you are harassing them? What the hell, man? What a scum of humanity you have become, Swedes, man. Fuck you all, right? For being this garbage. And no apologies for this language from my side, man. You don't deserve respect, you will not get one. Period, man. people are needing assistance and you are fucking detaining them, fuck you all then, bitches. Let's continue, by the way. Let's continue. And I'm telling you, man, we're going to go so angry, by the way, that if and when Europeans will launch a war, holy moly, man, there's going to be no freaking mercy from our side, man. There's going to be no freaking mercy. We will eat you fucking live. That's what we're going to do, man. Just give us a reason. Give us, just do it, man. Just start it. And we will fucking eat you alive, motherfuckers. And I'm so fucking angry, man. Who are these bitches, man, that are acting like if they are on top of if they are some apex predators and we are nobodies, right? We will show you who we are, man, soon. Fucking animals. Let's continue. And another fucking animal, Netanyahu, this fascist bitch, plans to visit US soon, and reports are that he gonna push Trump towards another military action against Iran. This time around, Netanyahu will complain about Iran's improved air defense systems, missile systems, ballistic missile systems, and of course Netanyahu, this scum of humanity, will also use nuclear program of Iran as justification of another strikes. I said a million times before, Western ruling class is an existential threat for humanity and there has to be exterminated. And I said a million times before, Israel is a fascist entity that deserves no right to exist, right? No fascist entity in this world has any inherent rights to exist. So therefore, this fascist Israel should not be on a political map and should be wiped out 100%, by the way. Fascist Israel I'm talking about, that it is right now. And until humanity, decent part of it at least, will get together, man up, and deal with these fascists and demilitarize this Israel, denuclearize Israel, and until Israelis, these fascist Israelis, by the way, majority Israelis are freaking fascists, man. Make no mistake. Majority of Israelis are freaking fascists, genocidal maniacs, right? Until they will undergo complex denazification programs, there's going to be no peace in the Middle East, man. There's going to be no peace in the Middle East. These scumbags not going to stop acting like a scum of humanity and committing genocides left and right. They're not going to stop until decent part of humanity, and I want to believe in humanity, by the way. I want to believe that most of the humanity is good, right? On the right side of history. So until this decent part will man up and deal with these freaking fascists, there's going to be no peace. Neither in the Middle East, neither in this freaking world, man. That is being turned into a freaking bloody circus. Just factually accurate statement. And to confirm this, by the way, look, for another news, Finance Minister of Israel, Bezalel, or whatever his fucking name is, Smotrich, this fucking scum of humanity, stated that Israel approves 19 new settlements in the West Bank, which is already being destroyed, decimated, and occupied by Israeli fascists. They want to take more land from natives and build 19 new freaking settlements. Israel has no freaking right to be present in the West Bank, but yet again, fascist Israel, until fascist Israel exists, by the way, Palestinians gonna have no peace, the Middle East will have no peace, right? And it will be shame on humanity that we allow these fascists to exist and to operate in the way they do, man. That's it, right? No apologies, man. We should start to talk real stuff, man, right? All of us. I always do this. I always talk real, man. But unfortunately, very many still are messing around this political correctness. We have to be polite. Polite to whom, man? To these fucking fascists? Really? No, no, they have to be neutralized. Period. And Tucker Carlson, by the way, this guy, man, Tucker Carlson, former Fox News host and now independent broadcaster, independent journalist, was named to be anti-Semite of the year. Fucking hell, man. Anti-Semite of the year by Stop Anti-Semitism organization, NGO, or whatever the scam that garbage organization is, by the way, right? Funded, obviously, financed by Zionists and Israeli fascists. So, well, Tucker Carlson should be proud of himself, man. That fascists and their inhuman elements are considering him to be their enemy. He must be doing something correct then, right? And when it comes to this term in itself, anti-Semitism, you know what? It's laughable at this point when someone is being called anti-Semite, especially when Jewish people were called anti-Semites, right? And there is so many great people from Jewish community worldwide, by the way, right? That are on a avant-garde, by the way, of fight against this fascist regime in Israel, right? And they've been called anti-Semites and they're self-hated Jews or something by this Zionist scum. And the Arabs, by the way, when Arabs are called anti-Semites, that's a whole different story. Arabs themselves are Semites, so how they are anti-Semites? Can anyone explain it to me? How? But this Western freaking propaganda and Zionist propaganda, they kind of privatized, isn't it? This terminology, and they try hard to push the narrative that if you say anything about crimes of the Israel or the Zionists or all the inhuman activities of theirs, you are anti-Semite, and this word was kind of privatized to mean only to be only Israeli related, which is nonsense, by the way, right? Which is nonsense. We all know that. Yes, Israeli language, Hebrew, is a Semite language, for sure, right? As it is Semite language or Arabic. And Arabs are Semites, by the way, as original tribes of Israeli tribes or Jewish tribes were. But modern Israelis, vast majority of modern Israelis, by the way, have nothing to do with the original Jewish tribes, literally nothing, right? Historically speaking. Otherwise, I mean, we all understand 200,000 years ago, we all have some relative. At least 200,000 years ago. We are all freaking one species, right? But historically speaking, modern Israelis, vast majority of them are freaking Europeans, man. That's what they are. They are settlers, right? They went in, took the land from their native people, and declared themselves to be descendants of tribes, original tribes that adopted their Judaism thousands of years ago. While in reality, they have nothing, nothing. They have no relations with those people, man. I am much more closer, honestly. I am personally much more closer to those original tribes of the Jewish people than these European settlers. And you know why? Because I'm a Georgian Ossetian, isn't it? Ossetians are Alans. Alans are Sarmatian tribe, right? Scytho-Sarmatian tribe. And originated, and they were, and Ossetians now are Iranic speaking, right? This culture originally, although it was occupying vaster areas of modern European Russia, European Central and Southern Russia, Central and Southern Ukraine, parts of Eastern and Central and Southern Europe itself, right? I mean, Scytho-Sarmatian civilization, right? But Their roots goes to Middle East, right? As roots of Indo-Europeans, generally speaking, right? And so me being related to Middle East in relative past, like I definitely have much more ties with original Jewish people than Jewish tribes than these modern Israelis, man, right? That most of them are freaking Hazars, right? They are mix of Europeans. They are mix of Indo-Europeans and Mongoloids, by the way. That's what they are. Mix of Indo-Europeans and Mongoloids. Period. It is a scientifically correct statement, by the way. They are not. They have nothing to do with the original Jewish tribes. And those dirty scum is saying that if I say anything, if I criticize these fascist actions of the Israel, I'm somehow, like anti-Semite. No, man. I have great respect for Arab culture, right? How am I anti-Semite? I have great respect for the Jewish culture, by the way, right? That they have nothing to do with. They might claim to be Jewish, but they are shame of Jewish history, actually. These modern so-called Israelis, man. If I was Jewish, by the way, I would be shamed that this scum of humanity is calling themselves Jews, man. I would be shamed, honestly, man. Fucking scum, man. And I remind you that according to studies conducted in Israel, from 70 to 90, 7090, by the way, vast majority of communities in Israel was in support of all the crimes that IDF committed against innocent Palestinian people. So when I say they are freaking fascists, I mean that. They are, by the way. So congrats to Tucker Carlson, by the way. If those fascists are designating him to be their enemy, then he's clearly doing something correct. That's it, man. And all he does really is push his America First narrative. Man. He don't cares about anything else much. He cares about his own country. And how he can be criticized for that, man. I respect that. If you care about your people, your country, that's good. That's how we should be, right? I live here in Russia. My family lives here in Russia. Of course, I have to care about Russia and make sure and do whatever I can to make sure that Russia is moving forward and strong and secure, right? Because, that's how else, man? How else? And Tucker is on the same page, and everyone that thinks similarly, there is nothing to criticize them for. Anyways, yeah, congrats to Tucker. He might be criticized for some other stuff, for sure, but not for criticism of Israel, by the way. How anybody cannot criticize this fascist entity that Israel is, man? I have no freaking idea. Interesting reports, interesting video was published yesterday on the internet of attacks on the Turkish militaries and pro-Turkish groups, armed groups in Syria, by the way. These attacks allegedly was done by so-called Syrian Democratic Forces, mostly Kurdish rebels, mostly Kurdish armed groups, and I can show you videos of these strikes. I can show you videos of these strikes. Quite impressive actions being taken by Kurdish rebels there. I cannot find the video, but I'm gonna show you anyways. I will find this video. I will find this video anyways, by the way. Just give me a second. Just a sec difference. And okay. Okay, this is the video. Let me turn off the sound, and yeah, you're gonna see some stuff that clearly will associate with the videos that you have seen from Zone of Special Military Operation, and probably you already know what am I talking about. Drones, by the way, drones that are changing modern warfare big time. Just look at this, man. How many attacks in just this little compilation? And these are attacks of Kurdish forces on.
Forces United.
No. Alisa, stop. Wow, that's her AI, by the way, local AI that we have here. Sometimes, for whatever reason, she thinks that she have to assist me, and yeah, she starts doing some stuff. But it's a a good AI. Anyways, you see, dear friends, you see what is going on there. So this is attacks conducted by Kurdish rebels against Turkish militaries and pro-Turkish forces in Syria, and quite impressive stuff there. We did not really know much, isn't it? We did not really know much about all these activities in Syria lately, especially, right? Whenever there is hostilities in the southern western parts, we are getting some information, but about northern Syria, very rarely some news comes around, isn't it? But meanwhile, that's what is going on there. There is actually clashes between Kurdish forces and Damascus regime, this new regime in Damascus, their forces, and the Turkish forces. And recently, if you remember, about like 3-4 weeks ago, I shared information that Turkey was deploying additional troops into northern Syria, and I was thinking that Turkey plans to launch some offensive against Kurdish troops. But now, when I saw this video, by the way, I mean, it is becoming a little more clear that in reality, maybe Turkey just reinforcing its own troops that been smashed by Kurdish rebels or something. Well, might be the case. And well, also, dear friends, when it comes to Turkey, I want to share with you this report that I see on Kirill Fyodorov's channel, Война, История, Оружие. This is one of the biggest channels, by the way, on Telegram, Russian channel, pro-Russian channel. And well, Turkey has started the construction of its own aircraft carrier. Quite impressive, isn't it? So Turkey has begun a process of building a 300-meter long aircraft carrier. This one announced by President of Turkey, Erdogan, at the ceremony of commissioning of offshore platform, raising the flag, and the first cut of metal at the Istanbul Naval Shipyard Command. We have begun the process of building 300-meter long-range aircraft carrier, which will be their older brother of TCG Anadolu, he said during his statement. And I don't know if you can see on your screen, by the way, mock-up of this aircraft carrier that Turkey plans to build. It will have a ramp, planes to jump, planes to take off from their carrier. This is basically most carriers in the world have these ramps, right? Trampolines for a takeoff. It's easier to maintain, I guess, this way, rather to have either electromagnetic accelerator or the steam accelerator, right? As US is using traditionally on its aircraft carriers, and lately China started using it too in Chinese latest aircraft carrier, third generation aircraft carrier. Although previous to Chinese aircraft carriers also were using trampoline, British aircraft carriers, by the way, that are never operational, floating cans. This Prince of Wales and what is the other one? Queen Elizabeth, right? Those aircraft carriers also are using this these trampolines. Although yet again, like 6 or 7 billion pounds were spent, and none of those aircraft carriers are actually operational. Maybe Turkey will do a little better with its own aircraft carrier. I don't know nowadays why would there any country, especially if you are not on the shore of ocean, gonna waste so much money on aircraft carriers. It's just to demonstrate flag maybe, but other vessels can do this also. But anyways, it's a Turkish business. If they want to build aircraft carrier, okay. I guess Greek would not be happy about it for sure. Israel not gonna be happy about it 100%. France not gonna be. No one gonna be happy about it actually in the region, in immediate neighborhood of Turkey, and also in Europe. That's for sure. Can they build it? I think yes, they can. So give it 3 to 5 years, and probably Turkey will have this new aircraft carrier. Although me personally, I'm on the page that aircraft carriers are obsolete nowadays. Just anyways, U.S. continues its piracy. By the way, U.S. militaries continue their piracy operations in the Caribbean. Yesterday, reports were that they hijacked another tanker, second one, and later on, reports start coming in that they hijacked third tanker in the Caribbean Sea. These actions of U.S. were justified by White House with the statements that U.S. is just acting to stop the vessels, to deal with the vessels that are maybe not necessarily sanctioned, but they are carrying sanctioned oil. Whatever that means, by the way. I mean, what the hell is sanctioned oil, right? You have sanctioned something that is underground. Let me sanction under everything underground U.S., man. Can I do this? But anyways, the level of craziness of Western ruling class has no borders, right? Has no boundaries. So they can justify literally anything nowadays. And also interesting reports that are coming in that U.S. militaries are pursuing another oil tanker, right, linked to Venezuela. So according to Interfax news agency, and I believe many other media outlets worldwide reported about this stuff, that U.S. Coast Guard attempted to intercept a Venezuela-linked oil tanker currently in the Caribbean Sea. New York Times also wrote about it, citing informed sources. The tanker Bella 1 was heading to Venezuela for oil, and according to one of their newspaper sources, was not carrying cargo. It was empty. The publication notes that when U.S. military personnel approached the tanker, it was not flying a national flag, making it a stateless vessel subject to inspections at the sea in accordance with their international law. And who we gonna believe? U.S. militaries? I mean, seriously? U.S. military said that there was no flag on the vessel. I mean, yeah, of course. Maybe there was no vessel too. Or maybe she was gone itself, and vessel was floating in the air. I mean, U.S. militaries, they can come up with quite impressive anecdotes, isn't it? Freaking clowns, man. So according to other media reports, the tanker was sailing under the Panamanian flag. You see? So when U.S. Coast Guard officers attempted to board their vessel, it continued its movement. It didn't stop, right? Rightfully so, by the way. You should not obey orders from the freaking pirates, right? Even if those pirates are representing U.S. nowadays, because, yes, pirates are criminals, right? U.S. militaries are criminals, by the way. U.S. Coast Guard, they are criminals because they were acting beyond their actual legit rights. So there are no updates, by the way. Did they eventually hijack this tanker also or not? Probably they did, right? We're gonna learn. We're gonna learn some additional information about it. But what is also interesting, I saw on DD Geopolitics, another big channel, by the way, on Telegram. Many of you are probably familiar with the channel. So DD Geopolitics reported that a Russian tanker or Russia-linked tanker Hyperion has safely arrived at her Amway, Venezuela, home to Paraguana Refining Center, the world's second largest refinery complex by capacity. The Hyperion departed from Murmansk, key Russian Arctic port, increasingly used for longer fuel energy exports following Western sanctions. So, okay, this Hyperion that is either Russian or linked to Russia arrived in Venezuela, and U.S. militaries, for whatever reason, did not hijack it. Maybe because it was empty, but on the other hand, this tanker that U.S. Coast Guard and militaries tried to hijack, Bella One, was also empty, but they did try to hijack it. Hyperion arrived in Venezuela safely, but who knows, maybe on the way back, in whichever direction this Hyperion alleged Russian tanker gonna go, maybe on its way back, U.S. militaries will try to hijack it. I would not be surprised at all if some PMCs are securing this tanker, well-armed group, by the way, and I would not be surprised at all if U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. militaries will receive notice that if they try to hijack it, they're gonna be exterminated. Maybe the case, by the way, and I have no issues with that whatsoever, obviously, right? U.S. is an enemy of Russia, so therefore, it is what it is, man. I feel sorry for this situation that we are in, but it's not Russia that attacked U.S. It's U.S. that attacked Russia. So therefore, we will have an appropriate attitude towards the U.S. Obviously, things might change, might not necessarily, but things might change in the future if American people will actually manage to reclaim their own country and say in their own destiny. But will they be able to do so? We have a lot of Americans in the community, by the way. Tell us, dear friends, would you be able to reclaim your own country? Honestly? Not now. We all understand that you cannot do it now, neither in years to come, but at least in decades, man, would be able to reclaim your own country. Or US forever gonna remain as a tool, as a baseball bat in hands of these groups of special interests that are running the show there. And how long U.S. military is going to operate is if they are like pocket army of these special groups of interests, deep states, Zionists, globalists, and the rest of the scum. Anyways, Russian vessel arrived safely, although it does not mean that when this Hyperion will try to move towards sail towards next destination, U.S. troops not gonna try to hijack it. We will see. And also, when it comes to Venezuela, reports are that U.S. is deploying additional bunch of F-35 fighter jets in Puerto Rico. This time around, these are F-35A fighter jets from 158th Fighter Squadron of the U.S. National Guard. And already, by the way, there is a lot of military equipment being deployed into region, basically. And I'm quite sure this is not just for strikes against Venezuela. I'm quite sure U.S. is preparing. U.S. leadership is preparing for attacks on Cuba. Cuba is their main target. Venezuela is the first step, but I'm 100% convinced Cuba is their target. Also, I can show you. Do you need a video of arrival of these fighter jets in this base in Puerto Rico? I can show you video anyways. That's the video, I believe. So just in this frame, by the way, you can see how many: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 2 planes are 10, right? 2 planes arriving in addition. And there is another transport plane like Hercules, isn't it? C-130 Hercules there. All of these are F-35s, right? They look like F-35s, all of them. So yes, this is you see, U.S. militaries have no freaking idea, by the way, have no freaking idea about modern warfare, how they can cannot censor the videos, by the way, that are published. Can you imagine what a wonderful target this place is? One strike, literally one long-range strike, and you're gonna take out like 10 dozen of planes at once, and potentially with their shrapnels, you're gonna damage this 130 Hercules too, transport plane too, with some shrapnels. Yeah, the U.S. militaries have to go a long way before they will learn modern warfare tactics, by the way. And one day they're gonna end up against adversary, near peer adversary, and they're gonna be surprised big time. And Michael Kennedy is asking how many already fly. I mean, these ones have been deployed, so probably they all are operational. But according to reports, I mean, last time I see reports about readiness of U.S. Air Force, for example, in case of F-35s, report says, if yet again, correct me if I'm wrong, dear friends, but correct that report was saying that about 30%, 35% of planes were actually combat ready. Rest was out of service, by the way. I don't know why, but rest was out of service, and because Western military-industrial complex usually operates in ways that they are over-engineering stuff, right? They are over-engineering stuff because they are making big money, not just on the sales, but also on the maintenance programs, right? Because they are over-engineering this stuff, there is always something that will break down, always. And this goes for planes too. This goes for planes too, right? And there are very many people, pilots actually, are saying that F-35 is over-engineered plane. And that's why this is one of the reasons why there is constantly issues with already delivered planes and for planes that are being delivered now. And hardly anybody likes F-35s, by the way. In this particular case, it's F-35. It's technologically, it might have plenty of new features. I can believe in that. It must be over-engineered, but F-16s will do the job. All the F-16s, by the way, right, in right hands, will do no any lesser impressive job that F-35s, right? Nothing to be said about absence of dogfight capabilities on part of F-35s, by the way. They are not dogfighters. They are not. If they fail to intercept, to defeat our enemy in air-to-air combat beyond visual, in a BVR fight, in a beyond visual range fight, they are cooked, because in a dogfight, in a close range fight, these planes have no chances, by the way, against literally any fourth generation fighter jet. Alexander G is commenting that F-16 is actually more capable, except for the stealth, and I agree with you absolutely. I also believe that F-16s are much more agile and more capable than F-35s. Only plus on F-35 side is a stealth capability, but yet again, with their high-speed developments of the modern radar systems, this stealth technology, by the way, this low observability stuff are gonna become a part of history very, very, very soon. There are already reports that Russia, China, already adopting new generation of radars that can see F-35s, can see anything really on far, far away, right, beyond visual range, basically, right? So, okay, they are dropping more and more weapons, by the way, in Venezuela. You might wonder, how long this buildup gonna continues, and I can see a comment from Arthur Cottrell. F-22 is the best plane we have. That means you are in US, and yes, US best US fighter jet is F-22 for sure, and F-22 is definitely best fighter jet US has ever produced. If you ask me, I think Su-57 is a better fighter jet, and I'm saying so because I'm from Russia, right? And I'm a bigger fan of Soviet and Russian fighter engineering school, right? And obviously, I will say Su-57 is the best plane, but none of those planes, by the way, neither F-22s, neither Su-57s have any combat against each other. So we just don't know. Honestly, we just don't know. But F-22 is obviously a great plane. There's no way I'm gonna say anything negative about F-22. But F-35, no one likes it, by the way. No one freaking likes it. Even US pilots are calling it Fatemi and all kind of names, by the way. Anyways, you might ask, the F-35 had an argument with the pilot and ejected him. Yes, F-35 is a whole different story. And you might ask their friends, what the hell is going on? How long this build-up gonna take place? And obviously, I cannot know, but I will say my guess is that Washington afraid. Washington, White House, Pentagon, they are afraid, by the way, because it is easy to launch a war, but it's very difficult to end it, right? And I think Pentagon is afraid, White House is afraid that they might end up in Venezuela being trapped against sophisticated forces that know how to fight, right? They are afraid, I think, that Venezuelan people are going to receive assistance from their friends, and they do have quite powerful friends, by the way. They have, Russians, Chinese, Iranians, others, right? And so even in our immediate neighborhood, by the way, I'm quite sure number of countries, including Brazil, will provide their Venezuelan militaries, people of Venezuela, with a certain level of assistance, with intelligence, with this and that, right? So I think White House is afraid, and Pentagon is afraid. Last time they went for big military campaign was Afghanistan, and it did not end well for US or for their allies, right? They had to run away, and we all remember the videos, isn't it, of scenery, what was going on. So I'm afraid. Not I'm afraid, but I think they are afraid. White House and Pentagon are afraid of what they might face in Venezuela. And as I said many times before, if people of Venezuela are gonna fight against invaders, most likely they will get assistance from their friends, direct, indirect, or whatever, but they will get assistance. And I would honestly say, sometimes I might be very angry. When I'm angry, I say some crazy stuff, but I'm a bit chill now. So I can say Uh, would be better for sure. Would be better if US will back off from Venezuela and from Latin America, man. They don't have to send those troops to their certain death. It's after all, very many people, by the way, in U.S. military are just as ordinary guys as we are, right? And humanly speaking, we don't want nobody to die, right? Especially for geopolitical agenda of sickening Western ruling class, or U.S. ruling class, or globalists, or neocons, and so on. So, of course, it will be better if U.S. will just back off, man, and don't go ahead with this craziness. Will they? I don't think so, but you know, a few more news, sir. A few more news, dear friends. To be more precise, one more news that I want to share with you in this update, which is that well, I mentioned this yesterday, isn't it? That South Korean officials told their economist that they would not be able to sit out the fight between US and China because US not going to allow them to do so. And we can understand that yes, US would not allow its proxies to chill while US will be engaged in a war with China when time comes. And well, if South Korean leadership, if or people of South Korea, if people of Japan, people of Philippines, people of I don't know, Thailand, people of all the other countries, by the way, around China, if they don't want her to face consequences of for being a U.S. proxy, and then they should stay away. Actually, they should declare full independence from US if they can, and they should encourage their governments to do so, right? Somehow, otherwise these statements from South Korean officials is correct. US, of course, will not allow them to sit out their fight. Why would they? I mean, if you were in charge of US, let's say, if you were in charge and you had proxies all around the China, would you allow them to chill while you are sending your troops in fight? No, you will use your proxies first. You will use your proxies first, right? And that's what US is gonna do. So if these countries around China don't want to become to share same fate as Ukraine did, they should distance themselves, right, from hostilities between US and Beijing. That is initiated by US. We all observing, isn't it, that China is not hostile, but I mean, let's be real here. China is not hostile. It's not Chinese leaders that are making every other day statements how they're gonna freaking destroy US or something. It's US officials, current or former, that are literally on daily basis saying that China is an enemy, we're going to do this to China, we're going to do that, we're going to send more weapons to Taiwan, we're going to encourage Japan to go hostile with China, we're going to encourage Philippines, South Korea, and then everybody, right? It's US that is escalating, not China, man. China is just observing situation and is preparing. And as I said earlier, I don't think US is in a position or even ever will be in a position to defeat China, man, militarily or otherwise. Best US can do, in my personal opinion, or if US was led, let's say this way, if US was led by adequate people that actually care about national interests of the country and their US citizens, they would realize that China going to dominate, right? And best way to go forward is to create alliances to make sure that this multipolar world will not transform in 20, 30, 50 years from now into a unipolar world again, dominated by China. And one way, or maybe even only way, to ensure that is to create a not hostile, non-hostile some alliances, right? For example, if US was led by normal people, by the way, probably they would think to build alliance with Russia, alliance with India, alliance with some other countries in the region, right? And will maintain good working relationships with China too simultaneously. But this cooperation, right, will allow to build their ground for keeping Chinese leadership in check, always, right? Not just now. Now Chinese leadership is absolutely peaceful, but to make sure that they're gonna be peaceful in 50 years too, we need some infrastructure in place, right? But you know, US is not led by normal people. US is not led by people that have any care about either US citizens or their interests, and therefore, and they are stupid too. But US is not led by even clever people. They are just too freaking stupid to understand what I just said. That only way forward, most likely, is and to make sure that China gonna be kept in check in far future. Because now there is no issues right there, but in the future is to build alliances. But what US leadership is doing, they are destroying relationships with their very countries with whom it should cooperate. It's crazy, man. It's crazy what's going on, man. Western ruling class is clearly a threat for all of humanity, and I said that a million times, man. Okay, this is it. This is it for news segment. Hopefully you did like it, dear friends. I tried to be informative, interesting, to share with you informative, interesting news, and to make this program interesting. And if I succeed in that, please like the video and leave some commentary in the comment section. This will help to deal with the algorithm. I did not check Rumble, by the way. Was there any? I'm checking it now, and I see no super chat, so I guess I did not miss nothing, isn't it, dear friends? And let me check Boosty. So no, nothing from Boosty Tour. So therefore, I can end the stream. Thank you all for your attention, dear friends. If you can, please, as I said, click that like button, leave some comment. This might help her. And take care. See you next time. Bye for now.